Dr. Jessica Hardy at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and Dr. Bonnie Ingelin, University of St. Thomas, now present STEM Instructional Strategies for Young Children with Disabilities.
Hi, welcome to our STEMIEFest session on STEM Instructional Strategies for Young Children with Disabilities. I am Jessica Hardy. I'm an assistant professor of special education at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign.
And I'm Bonnie Ingelin. I'm an assistant professor at the University of St. Thomas in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And we're here today to talk to you about STEM instructional strategies, and we're going to focus on 4 instructional strategies that really can be used together, but also build on one another to provide more intensive support. They are 1, capitalize on teachable moments; 2, set the stage with the environment and materials; 3, ask questions and provide challenges; and 4, implement instructional trials.
So we're capitalizing on teachable moments. We need to remember that STEM is everywhere and that our young children are going to notice it and engage with it and want to touch it and build with it and play with it. And so we really need to first of all start by just observing children and what they're doing. So paying attention to what they're interested in, what they're engaged in. And while they're doing those things, we need to encourage their questions and their activities, and really to build on those moments by adding in our own questions and our own challenges. And we'll talk more about questions and challenges later, but just making sure that we're not missing those moments, that we see what they're doing and go, oh yeah, I could add STEM in this way or that way, and really helping them to engage with math concepts in a deeper way, really all STEM concepts in a deeper way, by noticing what they're engaged with and what they really enjoy doing, and just slowly building in those STEM concepts to just increase their learning. So some examples of this at home and at school are, first of all, water play. So if you're at home, you might have that bathtub you can use. If you're at school, you have your water table possibly that they're using and playing with. They could try sinking and floating items. They could try different sized containers to pour. They could try different temperatures, all kinds of different things that you can do with water just to engage and explore with it, both in science concepts and math concepts. And even if we think of technology as tools, using different tools. Another example I like to think about is Tupperware. When you're a mom and your little baby crawls over and opens your Tupperware drawer and spills them all over, sometimes that can be a frustrating experience, but really you could use it instead as a time to look at some STEM concepts, thinking about stacking and building and different container lids on different items, and just all the kinds of toys and games you could do just with Tupperware that are related to STEM. Moving on with that, like snack time. Snack time is sometimes a time where we give them a snack and then we kind of step back, but it's a really great time to talk about like magnitude discrimination, such as who has more, who has less, how many do you have. Working on just those beginning math concepts is a really great way just to kind of get them talking during snack time. Another great time is playtime, which is another time that sometimes we as teachers or as parents sometimes step back, but it's a great time to jump in and work with them and try to ask them those questions, try to challenge them, try to see, what are you doing that I can add in some of these STEM concepts that I can build on what you're already interested in, what you're already doing. Walking is another great time. Whether you're outside walking or you're just walking around the hallways, it's a great time to count how many lockers there are, or how many specific tiles you see on the ground, or looking at the changes of seasons if you're outside, or talking about, you know, the different science things you saw or the different machines you saw and what they do while you're outside. So many different things you can do while you're outside, just taking a walk or even just walking down the hallway at school. Also, playgrounds or parks are a great way when you're outside with your children and just playing with them. You can look at the different items at a playground and how they help you go up and how they help you go down and how they're part of simple machines and activities. How could you go down the slide faster? Is the shorter one faster or the higher one faster? Just all those kind of games you can just really get them to engage with while they're at the playground as well. Interactions with animals are also a great way. Often children are very interested in animals and like to engage with them. So you can either, that's a pet at home, a pet at the classroom, or it's just like an insect they saw while they're out for a walk, talking about the differences between them, talking about their life cycles, talking about what makes a difference between a dog and a cat, and just helping them build those schemas and ideas about all kinds of different animals. Really just great ways throughout everything you're doing through a day within those routines and activities you do to find those teachable moments to build in STEM concepts.
Our second strategy is to set the stage with our environment and our materials. So we always want to make sure to provide engaging materials that will support STEM learning. And sometimes these materials might be store-bought, sometimes they might be collections that you find on the playground, but to really be creative and engaging in your provision of materials. This will also help you capitalize on teachable moments because you're providing lots of opportunities for children to engage in STEM concepts. When we introduce materials, when we're first introducing materials, we want to provide children with lots of opportunities to explore them because that's really how children learn and start to build ideas and concepts about materials and STEM ideas. So we want to make sure to provide those opportunities for them to explore and that we provide lots of choices for children. We let them choose, for example, what cooking instrument to use to mix the toilet paper and water in this toilet paper mush activity that we have here in the picture. So providing lots of choices and providing engaging materials is really important step to ensuring that children engage in STEM learning. We also want to provide visuals. Visuals are very important, especially for young children, especially for young children with disabilities. So in the toilet paper mush example, children are mixing toilet paper and water and they're seeing what happens. So if we want children to make predictions about what's going to happen when they do this, we can use visuals that provide choices for them. So is the toilet paper going to get mushy or is the toilet paper going to stay the same? So using those visuals to help them make predictions, communicate what happened, and have conversations about the STEM concepts they're exploring. We also can help them understand how to engage in STEM activities by providing a sequence of events. So in the picture on the right, children are engaging and using a target pendulum. So they're building a tower of boxes, and then they're swinging the target pendulum and seeing what happens to the boxes and seeing what happens when they experiment with the movement of the target. So providing these visual sequences can help children understand what to do, and it can also be a good activity to do after they've done the experiment to help them communicate what happened. Finally, we want to make sure that when we're setting the stage with the environment and materials that we're being flexible. So we're allowing children to use materials in ways that perhaps we haven't even thought of. So in this example, the child is building a block structure. It's a very common activity in an early childhood classroom. But this child wanted to bring in some tape from the art center. And some teachers might say, or some parents might say, no, that's for a different activity. But that really can help children build on their STEM concepts and think in new and creative and interesting ways and engage in problem solving. And those are all very important STEM behaviors.
So another thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we're asking questions and presenting children with challenges. So when a young children ask a question, our initial response is that we just tend to answer that question. So what if you changed it instead? And what if you instead asked a question in return? So we need to work on changing our viewpoint and view the child as the person who could solve the problem and who could provide the answers instead of just the adult. So we want to encourage them to try more trials, to try it in a different way, to have a different kind of thinking about things. So if they built a black tower and it fell down, instead of telling them, well, you need to put the bigger ones on the bottom and the little ones on top, allowing them to, let's say, well, what could we do different? Let's try it again, allowing them to come to that solution, allowing them to try it and think about it in different ways. Also, we need to support children in working with others to solve their problems. So we always want to support social interaction, right? But we also want to make sure that children see that other people might be that person who can help them or come up with a new idea. And so as they work with other children to try to figure out how could we do this? How could we work together to really solve these STEM type problems, and really helps build on each other's ideas and challenges them even more. So here's some examples of just some really simple questions that you could ask. You go, why do you think that happened? Or what could we do? Or what should we do next? Or do you think we could build something that, or oh no, now what? Or can you, or what would happen if? So these are lots of questions. And one thing I want to say here, sometimes we think with those really little ones, we can't ask really in-depth questions. And sometimes we do have to be careful with our language and make sure they understand us. But sometimes your question could just be like, oh, or what? Or, you know, just things like that. Even sometimes facial expressions or really simple things can be an example of a question. Instead of doing it for them, being exciting and engaging with them can sometimes be a way to ask a question as well. So some examples of during play, this is just one specific one about two kids who are playing with a dollhouse. And you maybe walk by and you notice that they have a little boy on top of the roof. And you could say, why is the boy on the roof? And then maybe they'll tell you he's stuck or whatever the story is and go, oh no, is he stuck? How are we going to get him down? And have them process through that and think through different ways that they could strategize to get this little boy down off the roof. And then talk about what are the other people in the house doing? Or how many are there trying to help? How many people are going to come to try to help? And what could you use to get them down? And again, as Jessica talked about, this might be where they get the fire truck and bring it over, or they get the blocks and bring them over. They get other things to try to problem solve and decide, what are we going to do here to really think about and strategize how we're going to get this child down? So you're using tools with technology. You're talking about the scientific method and the engineering about how we're going to problem solve and think through to get this child down. You can count and you can math all through, like how many people, how many things are they doing? There's just so much you can do to build in this one activity, all kinds of different STEM concepts.
The fourth strategy, which can be done in the context of teachable moments or an engaging environment and materials, or in the context of questions and examples, is to implement instructional trials. So when you're implementing instructional trials, you first want to start by identifying what are your STEM learning goals. So let's say your STEM learning goal is to focus on science and the process of predicting, experimenting, communicating results, and evaluating the prediction. So what can that look like in a given activity? So let's take the toilet paper mush activity. The child can predict what will happen when the toilet paper and water are mixed. Then you could help support the child to experiment by putting the toilet paper in the bowl, adding the water, mixing the toilet paper and water, and then communicate the results. So say, draw, or choose pictures of what happened, and then to evaluate the prediction. So to say or to somehow communicate whether the prediction is right. So the child could use visuals, the child could use sign language, or the child could verbalize. So those might be the steps that you would follow in an activity. And you can use instructional trials to help children follow the steps of that activity. So one method of providing instructional trials is called the system of least prompts. And really this is a fancy term for providing a little bit of support and then providing increasing amounts of support as needed to help the child perform the task. So when you use the system of least prompts, first you provide a cue, so a direction, or provide materials that will cue the child to act in a certain way. You observe what the child does. Then you provide a little bit of assistance, and you observe if the child can do the behavior then. If the child doesn't, then you provide a little bit more assistance, and you're always providing positive feedback when the child engages in the behavior that you're looking for. So let's look at what this might look like for the toilet paper mush activity. So let's say you're focused on the step of pouring the water into the bowl in the toilet paper mush activity. You might give a cue, that is, pour the water into the bowl. And then the child might do nothing. So then you could model pouring the water, as is being done in this picture here. Perhaps the child does it, or perhaps the child just touches the water bottle but doesn't pour it. So then you might provide hand-over-hand assistance to the child to help them pour the water. And then you would end with some positive feedback. Yay, nice work pouring. And you would move to the next step in the task. Let's mix the toilet paper and water together. So you can sequence multiple instructional trials within an activity as needed to help a child engage in the STEM concepts that are part of the activity. So that is our video presentation. We thank you for joining us, and we have our contact information on the screen if you'd like to follow up with any questions. And we look forward to seeing you at the Q&A.